anything about politics. So if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat and I will do my best to give you a great answer. Just go ahead and ask all your questions about politics in the chat. If you got questions about politics, put them in the chat. And that is where I will answer your questions. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. I know that there are certain questions that people are scared to ask because they're worried that it'll make them seem more conservative or more liberal or more Republican or more Democrat than they are. Maybe they don't feel comfortable painting themselves in that light, depending on who their friends and family are. Well, this is the place where you can ask all those questions. You know, maybe you are somebody on the right side of the spectrum, or you always wanted to ask a Democrat something. You know, maybe you are somebody who's lost faith in the Democratic Party, and you want to know why it is still our best option for unseating Republicans. There are a lot of things that are confusing about politics. A lot of abbreviations for three-letter agencies and people's last names, and us throwing around words like reconciliation and continuing resolution. And it's like, if you don't know what any of these words are, it can be really difficult to keep track of what your government is doing. And it's like, where do you even find reliable information these days? Party Source, great to see you again. Could you explain the ruling on no more nationwide injunctions against POTUS, please? Sure. So, I mean, it is another example of the, you know, blatant naked partisanship of the current Supreme Court, where there were a bunch of nationwide injunctions during the Biden administration that they never didn't seem to have any fucking problem with. But basically, they are saying that if the president is doing something that is blatantly unconstitutional, there are no lower courts that are able to stop him. That if you believe that the government is trampling on your constitutional rights, then you need to get a lawyer and you need to sue the government yourself in order to get that to stop. Or you need to get a whole bunch of people together and do a class action lawsuit. It is basically breaking down the enforcement of the Constitution into as many individual pieces as humanly possible, as opposed to, making it more widely available, especially for things as blatant as birthright citizenship. It's like it's so obviously unconstitutional. Like, why are we forcing people to do all this extra work for it? You know what I mean? Yeah, Partysaurus, oof is right. But thank you for your question and thank you for being here. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared. I'm here to answer your questions about politics. I'm not here to get into fights with people. I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to roast or to own or to ridicule. I just want to answer and engage in good faith and try to maybe increase people's awareness of what our government is doing and let people know what they can do to fight back, to be engaged, to organize, to recruit others, that sort of thing. Donnie says, if there was some funny business in the 24 election, like I've been hearing, what could be done? Carmine, you never have to apologize for being late. So what can be done about if we discover that, the Rockland County case in New York is proceeding, and we discover that the updates that were pushed to vote counting machines actually had some malignant code in it, where it was changing votes that Harris got to no votes, or it was changing votes that Harris got to Trump votes. Like, what do we actually do about that? There's no specific mechanism for how we can rectify that, because the president of the United States isn't chosen by the voters. The president of the United States is chosen by electors. And so the electors in the various states, they pick whoever their citizens chose in the statewide election. So if everyone in California votes for Harris, then the electors, submit their votes for Harris. So that's already happened. All of the electors have convened and they have voted for Donald Trump to be president of the United States. So that is the legal case. Now, is there room in the judiciary for, hey, I'm snorkeling, that's pretty cool. Is there room in the judiciary for Americans to file suit against the election of Donald Trump? Yeah, potentially. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court is currently in the bag of the Republican Party. And so even if we did have the most airtight legal case for reversing some of these, for reversing the decision of the electors, it would most likely be struck down by the extremely conservative right-wing Supreme Court. Now, so what can we do going forward, though, is an open question. Like, we can demand more transparency in our voting systems. We can demand that whoever is in charge of our voting systems now show us their math and make sure that our votes are counted fairly and accurately going forward. And we can know that America did not choose this. We can know that there is no mandate. There wasn't a mandate before, but there very much isn't a mandate now. If we were to hear, that case, and we would need to get every Republican on the record to say how they feel about this and what should be done about this, and then we can use that to inform our votes going forward and to inform and recruit people going forward. All right, Bazin Amma says, can you do a flip? No, but I can do a front handspring. Mandy Kidwell Park, and good to see you again, says, why doesn't the vote go off the popular vote, and can it be changed? So the vote cannot be changed. The reason why it doesn't go off the popular vote is because when the Constitution was being drafted and we were trying to figure out how democracy was going to work, there were all these different groups of people who were trying to balance rule of the country with direct democracy. Like, how much are we going to leave this up to the citizens? Should it just be people that own land? Should it just be men? Should it just be white people? Should certain states have more of a say than others? How are we going to balance this out? And some people would argue that it was a giveaway to slave states to include this thing called the Electoral College, so that the power of black citizens, black slaves in those states who didn't have voting power would not dilute the voting power of said states. But that's an open argument. There are plenty of historians who disagree with that interpretation. The important thing to consider, though, is that it's dumb. The Electoral College is dumb. We should get rid of it. We should have gotten rid of it a long time ago. It should be the popular vote. It should have been the popular vote a long time ago. And we don't need a constitutional convention to make that happen. All we need is for people to call up their state reps and tell them that they want their state to sign up for the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Because if we get enough states to sign up for the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, it will essentially nullify the Electoral College. Brian says, can you do the thank you meme? I don't know what the thank you meme is. Westside Jeffy says, why is okay for women to call me fat in public? I don't think it's okay for anyone to call you fat in public. Martin Covarrubias says, love how Mexico is helping Texas more than our presidents. I love that also. Carmine says, where did you get your comfy sofa? I got it from Living Solutions, or I think is what this is called. More importantly, how did you know I had a comfy sofa? That is terrifying. W. Page says, you can do a front handspring? Yes, I can, W. Page, and I did it many times in college. I'm surprised you didn't see it. Donald Trump 420 says, the Epstein files are fake news, believe me. I'm not sure which side of that you are arguing. I'm not sure if you're being funny or what. Judge says, do you think Trump is a fascist? I do, but more importantly, the people that study fascism think that Trump is a fascist. Carmine says, you mean the new voting thing Trump was talking about? Yeah, I'm not really sure what that is. Brian says, thoughts on the BBB? It is a massive transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. The rich are doing fine. They don't need more money. Why are they doing this? Why are Republicans in the billionaire class trying to dismantle the government so they can keep more of their money and act lawlessly and dump all the chemical runoff from their factories into our water? I don't know what their fucking problem is. Seems like they have a real fucking greed sickness where they don't give a shit about how many people they maim so they can afford one more golden fucking mega yacht, But yeah, that's what the BBB is. It's going to hurt everybody else unless you are a billionaire or a, fossil fuel executive. Gingy, good to see you again. Can you explain the gerrymandering that they're going to be doing in Texas in Democratic places? So I'm not sure what specific gerrymandering you're referring to, Gingy, but gerrymandering is essentially figuring out which areas of your state vote more consistently Democratic or Republican, and then redrawing maps in order to make it so that you're going to win re-election, even if there are more Democrats in your state than Republicans. North Carolina is probably the best example of this. Democrats won statewide elections by something like 65 to 35, and Republicans currently have a majority in the state government of something like 55 to 45 or something like that. That's what gerrymandering does. It says, it puts all the Democratic voters in one district, so every single Democratic voter gets one House member, and then divides all the Republican voters up into 10 districts. So that state gets 10 Republican House representatives and only one Democratic representative, etc. James Bond says, "Bro has that Cro-Magnon builds." I don't think so. I think I really got a really distinguished Roman nose. Carmine says, "When's the new Jarrett and Pajamas episode dropping?" Oh boy, I gave up on that series a long time ago. RC says, "Thoughts on sale of public land?" It's a crime, It's like they're trying to. Private companies want to profit off of land that technically belongs to every American citizen. The same way that Nestle kind of like owns all of our water and gets to sell it back to us. Now they wanted to chop down all of our trees for nothing. They just want to be able to pay the government a little fee and then sell our wood back to us at an inflated cost. Like it's disastrous. It's a fucking environmental disaster. People that are like enthusiasts of the outdoors, maybe you like fishing or hunting or hiking or whatever. The government wants to sell the places that you might go to go do all those activities just so that rich people can be richer, man. It's fucking disgusting. RC says, "Is it all about wood or is there more to it?" It's about wood, it's about water, it's about other valuable resources, oil and coal and, rare earth minerals and things like that. And potentially building condos and parking lots and stuff like that. James Bond said, "Hebrew knows." Well, that's what we call anti-Semitism. So you're out of here, James Bond. Sorry. Call me Blumfeld, because I just got rid of James Bond. Blumfeld? Is that what that dude's name was? Anyways. Uperlar, good to see you again. Is Trump's riffs that seems to be going on with Musk and Putin made up, or is narcissism kicking in? I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, I mean, the thing about Trump is that he will always do what is in his best interest. So if Putin or Elon Musk decide to put the weight of their money and power behind helping Trump become more rich and powerful, then Trump will instantly be like, these guys are my best friends. They're the greatest, the smartest people in the entire world. And it is only because they are not doing the exact thing that Donald Trump wants them to do that he is pushing back on them at all. So yeah, I don't know if it's fake for attention, but I do know that it is as, it is as flimsy as fucking, paper mache. But yeah, I think there's a really good. I think the majority of it is probably just like sincere narcissism, like three narcissists all vying for, for their individual motivations. Nick Barrow says Trump gave up $1.5 billion 4 years ago. All right, well, he's made like $3 billion just since he's been president in 6 months, through corruption. So I'm not really sure what point you're trying to make there, Nick Barrow. Tamara says, "Did you hear that Trump wants to make the NWS privatized?" Yeah, that's a fucking nightmare. Nick Barrow 64 says, "No, he has." He has what, Nick Barrow? You got to finish your sentence. Intellectual Honesty says, "Gerrymandering, there are two ways, cracking and packing, often used together." That is accurate. Dan Blackwood says, "Jaws, Dr. No, who's the guy with the cat? Sandy S says, "Trump is the greatest." No, he's not, Sandy S. Full Metal Jacket 70 says, "Do it, lady." I'm not a lady, and what do you want me to do? Raven Elise says, "Meme Wars is a great book about the alt-right weaponizing misinformation to propaganda and radicalize the right." Ooh, I'll check that out. This sounds pretty interesting. LJF says, "Yeah, calling our president a piece of shit is going to help the Democratic Party win." It may or it may not, but it is accurate. And, we live in a free country, so I'm allowed to call people pieces of shit when I think they're pieces of shit. It's called freedom of speech. And if you think that me, a single Democratic vote or a single progressive, is going to change all of political culture because I called the president a piece of shit, then I think that you think I'm a lot more popular than I actually am. Justin of Terrytown says Trump and Elon Musk are having a movie made about them, Brokeback Mountain White House edition. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Leggy Eggy says bloodless. Not sure what that means. All right. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. My name is Jarrett. I'm here to answer all of your questions about politics. I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to debate. I am just here to engage and get people more informed about what the government is doing to help parse through some of the misinformation. And if you're somebody like me who wants to do something to help, to let you know what you can do and where you can go. Mexican Guru says, how do you get your hair that nice? Medication. Forehead Snatcher says, do you support the government occupying the U.S.? I'm not really sure. Oh, you mean like the military going to California and shit like that? No, I do not support that. It is a massive overreach of power and a giant waste of money, and it is encroaching on the responsibilities of law enforcement and making it more difficult for them to do their jobs. Galadriel, at this point, I don't care what people on the right have to say, honestly. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, Galadriel. I think we need to know what people in right-wing spheres are saying if they are elected officials. The pieces of shit that are like the talking heads on the right, like Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and Alex Jones. I think we can ignore those people and just kind of like know and be able to communicate that they are liars and grifters and pieces of shit. But the things that politicians say do have an effect, and when we have their words to use as proof points against them, I think that is a very valuable tool to have. Forehead Snatcher says, do you support the government occupying the U.S.? I think I already answered that one. All right, welcome everybody to the live stream. My name is Jarrett. I'm here to answer all your questions about politics. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you voted for Trump, if you're currently MAGA. If there's a good faith question that you want to ask somebody on the left, a progressive, a proud Democrat, then this is the place where you can do it, and there's not going to be any fighting or debating or roasting. I'm not going to call you dumb or gullible or uninformed or anything like that. I just am here to engage in good faith. I'm here to get people more informed about what their government is doing, and I am here to help people be activated and organized political actors so that if they don't like what their government is doing, they know that there are things that they can do about it. Stoner Drew says, why don't you do audio so you can hear us? I don't know. I just my numbers tend to go down whenever I have people on that I interview. Let's see here. Fingers emoji says, what do you think about the BBB? It's a real piece of shit, the BBB. It is a massive transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. So the people that don't need the money are getting the money, and the people that need the money are getting the money taken away from them. That doesn't really seem like a great thing. Leggy Eggy says, can you say the name of the thing our legislators need to join to get rid of the Electoral College? Absolutely. It is called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. I'll say it once again. It is the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. Call your representatives and ask them, hey, have we signed up for the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact yet? And if we haven't, tell them, hey, I want us to sign up for the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact so that we can get rid of the Electoral College. Let's see here. Finger emoji says, what section says that? The whole thing is that. Finger emojis. CA Alex says, oligarchy or plutocracy. It can be both things. Oligarchy is just, like the entire government is under the control of a really small group of insiders. That is the Trump base. That is the Trump coalition. He has consolidated power and rooted out anybody who might disagree with him or stand up to him, even people in his own party, even people in career political, jobs that are completely nonpartisan. What was the other part of that question? And plutocracy, yeah, a government of the rich for the rich. Trump has more billionaires in his cabinet than any president in history. It is that. It's also a kleptocracy where him and his rich buddies are basically just like selling off America for parts, Matt Perry says, monogamy or polygamy? I'm a monogamist personally, but whatever floats your boat. So yeah, finger emojis wanted to know about the BBB. Let's see here. Just to give you a little taste. 17 million people are going to lose their health care through ACA and Medicare and Medicaid. Hospitals in rural towns are going to be shutting down. Drug treatment centers are going to be shutting down. Doctors and scientists are already fleeing the country because they can't practice here the way that they feel is necessary to withhold their oath. And so they're leaving, and that's going to happen more. There's going to be more paperwork and red tape for anybody on government assistance programs. This is supposedly the party of small government, but now they just added all of this paperwork and red tape so that people won't be able to get their benefits. It's going to remove subsidies for renewable energy and add taxes to renewable energy and cancel renewable energy contracts. So all of our electric bills are going up. And additionally, there's going to be more pollution in the air, which is fucking great. Tax breaks for the fossil fuel industry. There's going to be brownouts. There's going to be like almost 2 million jobs lost. So there you go, just a little bit. Big Eater Plus says, which party is best for cheese? I think they're probably equally good for cheese. Nate Debate says, people who struggle, read, and take care of themselves are going to die because of this. That is accurate. Fella says, am I too high on hopium that Trump may actually stand up to Russia? Yeah, I think so. I don't think that we should be waiting for Trump or Republicans to do things that are good. I don't think that we should wait for the Republican coalition to destroy itself. I think that we need to do everything. I think we need to do all the work to unelect every single Republican in office from president to dog catcher. And I don't care if the polls say that that's already going to happen and we can just rest easy and play video games. I still say we should all fucking do it, you know? There's an expression that I saw on the TV show Third Rock from the Sun, which is if you want to punch someone in the face, aim for the back of the head. I want to go for, if we want 50 seats in the Senate, I want to aim for 67 seats in the Senate. If we're aiming for, 50% of the House, I want to aim for 100% of the House. It is just, yeah. There is no Republican should survive re-election because of the shit that they have put us through over the past 10 years, but particularly the past 6 months. Alrighty. Panda says opinions on Candace Owens. She's a liar. She's a con artist. She's trying to do a pivot right now to seem more reasonable so that she can run for president in the future. David's Orbit says civics or tech early in a civilization. David's Orbits? I'm really sure what you mean by that. The biggest poner says, bro, you lost the election. Take the L. I didn't lose shit, man. I wasn't running. America lost. Mexican Guru says, feels like a colonpocracy. I see what you're doing there, but I think you kind of missed the mark a little bit. Carmine says, Civilization 5. I played one of them games. All right, let's get back in here. Dan Blackbird says, the Democrats are better for cheese because Trump's 2018 trade wars bankrupted legacy farmers. That is completely accurate. Sandy B says, Hope is absolutely right. Let's do this. I'm with you. Leah Bing says, yes, I agree. I'm glad that you agree. Thank you for being part of the work, everybody. BWD says, Trump is the best president in our lifetime. Only if you were born today. Rival says, I don't think America was ever in danger of being directly attacked by Iran in any way. Yeah, that's probably accurate. I mean, what would most likely happen is that Iran would, assist in terrorist cells, doing attacks on America, as opposed to like the government of Iran actually doing any kind of like straight attack on us. Let's see here. Panda says, how is only a little bit of your hair gray? That's because it's natural. It's all natural, baby. David's Orbit, if you could view the entire evolutionary history of any government, which would it be? The entire evolutionary history of every government. I guess the Holy Roman Empire seems pretty interesting, but really that's just my ignorance of ancient history. I could think of like three, I could think of like the British Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, fucking ancient Mesopotamia. That sounds pretty cool. Abdul Kaderi says, is it true that when Democrats run the government, we have a better economy? Yes, all of the data says that. Danny is terrible says, I'm just looking forward to the midterms. Don't just look forward to it, Danny. Do the work. Let's fucking win the midterms. Let's make us win the midterms, Alrighty. Danny is terrible says, we need to do a lot of work. Yes, Danny, but maybe part of that work can be recruiting other people to do the work so that we all don't have to do as much work. That sounds pretty cool. Quim says, thoughts on Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro? I know that there are people that have issues with Josh Shapiro, but he's extremely popular in the state. He seems like he's doing a pretty good job to me. I don't live there, so I can't tell you. But my mom lives there, and she seems to like the fella. I'm sure that there are criticisms to be made, whether you are a centrist or a Republican or a progressive. But yeah, he seems pretty popular. I'm glad we have a Democrat in control of that state. No specific complaints on my end. But if you tell me something that he's done, I can tell you if I like it or don't like it. Jack Tavani over on YouTube says, isn't the problem capitalism? Do you support Reza Shah? I don't know who Reza Shah is, Jack Devani. But yeah, I think that unfettered capitalism is part of the problem of what we are experiencing right now. There's no reason why people should be able to afford yachts because they canceled people's cancer treatment that they should have been that they were legally entitled to. You know. Excuse me. We already do have a little bit of socialism and communism in this country right now. I think we need a little bit more. You know, we need to be incentivizing companies to be, employee owned the way that Publix is employee owned. And we need to be nationalizing industries like the healthcare industry that don't make sense in the private market. Thank you for your question, Jack. Thank you for being here. Joni Calder, good to see you again. What does the governor of Florida think about all those criminals coming to his state? I'm sure that DeSantis is pleased as fucking punch that a bunch of people who don't deserve it are now sitting in a concentration camp in his state. Rival says, well, the popular vote argument worked for his 2016 election. Works. Why is it still being brought up? I think just because if we only argue for getting rid of the Electoral College when the Democratic candidate would have won, except for the Electoral College, then it removes a little bit of the saliency and legitimacy of our arguments. I am against the Electoral College, even when without it, the Republican candidate still would have won, because it's dumb. It erases people's votes. If you are a Republican in California and you and your Republican buddies all vote for the Republican president, but you lose the state of California by one vote, all millions of your votes get thrown in the fucking garbage. Same with any Democrat voting in a red state. And I think that everybody's vote should not be thrown away. I think everybody's vote should, what do you call it? I think everybody's vote should count equally. Danny is terribly says, I don't care either way the Electoral College is wrong. The vote should all count. Completely agree with that. Dan Blackwood says, Harris would have won if it was a popular vote because more people would have been motivated to vote. I agree with that. Carmine says, how does Ted Cruz manage to be out of the country every time a disaster occurs? I don't know. It's almost like he has some inside information where he can avoid that shit, you know? Rival says, while yes, I lean very slightly right, I think he should have lost in 2016. How is it that you lean very slightly to the right, Rival? I would love to dig into that, you know, in a completely good faith, non-argumentative, non-hate-filled way. Clarette says, I love Jesus. Oh, well, I'm sure Jesus loves you back. John Bradley says, need a Glass-Steagall type bill for insurance companies and healthcare providers. No more collusion. Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me. Mexican Guru says, last night I got a bottle for my wife. Was that a good trade? That's a pretty funny bit. Alrighty, let's see here. John Juan says, can the Chinese grow a consumer base to surpass the United States? Yeah, I think that the trade wars that Trump has started and the way that he is defunding renewable energy and research projects and the way that he is pushing smart people and scientists who were going to be here in America to other countries, he is basically giving the future to China. Specifically where you said the consumer base is concerned, if you start a trade war with one country, like you might be able to get a good deal. If you start a trade war with every country versus you, you're going to lose. And everybody's just going to continue trading amongst themselves. And their technology sectors are going to grow. And their advancement is going to grow. And their economies are going to grow. Whereas ours is shrinking and the dollar is fucking tanking, you know? Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom. Uperlar says, can the country by vote overturn most of what the orange dude has done? Can Congress overturn the BBB? 100%, Uperlar. Everything that Trump has done can be undone. Everything that man has built can be unmade. But yeah, it's just going to take work. It's going to take a lot of people being activated and organized and voting. And it's going to take people on the phones making sure that their elected representatives do the right thing, because the billionaire class is not going to stop. Even if Democrats won every seat in the midterms, even if we dominated in 2028, the billionaire class would still be trying to affect the kind of change that makes them more money. And what makes them more money hurts the rest of us. So we have to, in addition to doing that work, we also have to let them know that their messages are not working on us. All right. Jose Arujo says, I'm ready for the midterms. Are you doing the work, Jose? Lovely says, how much do you think Trump is? How much I think he is. What? Lovely. Pickle Banana says, thoughts on registering Republican just for primary purposes. I'm not really about that kind of gamesmanship. I think that people should just vote for who they want to vote for. Right. Jeanette Jensen. Although it would take us 3.5% of us to not pay taxes, it would topple most of them overnight. There's some real legal jeopardy to people not paying their taxes, so I'm not going to advocate for that. But if that's the kind of protest that you want to do, then fucking do live your life, my man or lady. Pickle Banana says, thoughts on Rich. Oh yeah, I already did that one. I am a sandwich 3 says BBB isn't going to get overturned by any means. That's inaccurate, and also like you're saying that like you have the power of future prediction. I am a sandwich 3, and I don't think that anybody knows that to be the case. Let's see here. Matt Perry says open primaries. I don't know. Jeanette Jensen says not if we all get together and do it. I don't know, Janet. I'm really worried about that sort of thing. ICE just had their budget increased 360%. They're going to be building more concentration camps all over the country. They're going to be doubling, potentially tripling the number of officers that they have. And that just means that it'll be easier for them to round all of us up and put us into fucking work camps, So yeah, I'm extremely worried about that shit. All right. I'm a sandwich 3 says amount of committees it would need to go through. All right, well, that is still a thing that can happen. I'm a sandwich. Alrighty. Let's see here. Scrolling back up through these comments. Rival says, there's a lot of stuff to type that I can't fit in here, but I'd love to DM you and try to explain it. Please do, Rival. My DMs are open. I would love to engage with you on this. It is my opinion that there's nothing valuable in the Republican Party platform. So, let us engage in a dialogue where I could potentially push you to be more of a center-left person than a center-right person. All right, scrolling down the bottom of the TikTok comments. All right, wait over on YouTube. We got Jack Devani again. Says the Shah's son is taking over Iran. Look him up. Seems like Israel wants him. I don't love the Netanyahu government of Israel, but if Israel is cool with whoever is taking over for the Shah in Iran, maybe he has more of a progressive and inclusive and fundamentalist extremist, way that he's planning on ruling. I don't know. I'm for peace. So even if it means, cooperating with the Netanyahu government to end the bloodshed, then I'm for it. But maybe you're suggesting that he's like, a tool of the Israeli government, in which case there could be some real negatives to that. All right. Pickle Banana says we should be pushing for prison reform as well. Seems like we are always just reacting versus proactive. I 100% agree that prison reform is a thing. And as far as like reacting versus being proactive, there are 100% groups that are being proactive. There are wings of the Democratic Party that are being proactive. But yeah, I understand why it can seem like that, because the Republican Party gives us a lot of things that we have to fix, a lot of things that we have to react to. Scotty says, will there even be midterms? There will be if we make them be midterms. If we sit around and are like, I really show hope that Donald Trump, the guy who is exhibiting all of the telltale signs of a fascist dictator, allows us to have midterms in the future, then yeah, potentially he'll try to cancel the elections. But if we are activated and engaged in nonviolent protest, if we are constantly recruiting people to the cause, then there's no way they can stop us from having midterm elections. Mandy Kidwell Parkin says Pete Buttigieg would be an amazing president. Do you think that he stands a chance? Let's see here. Zach Slug says D1 yapper. Does that mean I'm a good yapper or a bad yapper? So yeah, Pete Buttigieg. I like Pete Buttigieg a lot. I think he's a great communicator. And I do think that it is important to have younger politicians in office. I think it's important to have more diverse candidates in office. So I think the fact that he represents the LGBTQ community, I think would be a great step forward. I think it means something that we've had a black president. I think it would mean something to have a female president. His politics are a little more centrist than I go for. But I do love him as a communicator for the Democratic Party. My concern is that, number one, the greater population of America is maybe too homophobic to elect a gay president. The bigger concern, though, would be that the people voting in Democratic primaries would also be concerned that he would not be able to win the general election and then would just not vote for him because of that. So does he have a chance? I don't know. You know, like people didn't think that Barack Obama had a chance, and then he did. You know. Alrighty, I'm a Sandwich says if Pete was the nominee, the Republicans would win again. Again, I'm a Sandwich. You're saying all these things like you know things to be true, and no human knows that. You know, I would encourage you to embrace a little bit of humility where you can recognize that you can think that something's going to happen in the future, but that you don't know that something's going to happen in the future. Not Kendra says, is the BBB cutting Medicaid, SNAP, and Medicare? Yes. Yes, it is, Kendra. Cola Blue says, what's up? You think he is on the list? So I don't know if there is an Epstein list or not. But there are a couple of things about this that I think should be raising everybody's eyebrow, which is that the two people that are in control of the FBI right now are named Kash Patel and Dan Bongino. And before Trump won election, these guys were fully fucking Epstein conspiracy pilled. They were on every fucking podcast talking about the Epstein list and the flight documents and the videotapes that need to be released to the public and how they're going to subpoena people for the listed information and how everybody's going to go to jail and they're going to be the ones that do it. And now they are in charge of the FBI and now they're saying there's nothing there. So what does that mean? What does that tell you? These people are incentivized to find something to give to their base. So this either means that there's nothing there and they were just completely full of shit the entire time that they were podcasting, or there is something there, but they're protecting the people on the list, like probably Trump, in which case they're completely full of shit right now. So there's no universe in which Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are not 100% full of shit. They're either 100% full of shit and covering for a PDF file who is currently the president of the United States, or they were a piece of shit, liar, bullshit artists who were just trying to make money off of conspiracy theories for their podcasts. I think it's also important to know that Epstein said in an interview in 2017 that he was Donald Trump's closest friend, that Michael Wolff reported that Donald Trump was worried about what Ghislaine Maxwell might say about the people that were close to Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers were the same as Trump's lawyers. The district attorney who gave Epstein the sweetheart deal in Florida was like Trump's first commerce secretary or some shit like that. I forget which position he had exactly. So yeah, you know, they've been photographed together like dozens of times, you know. So yeah, is it likely that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were really good friends? I think it's extremely likely. Not Kendra says, are they completely cutting Medicaid? They're not completely cutting it. They are defunding, and they're also adding red tape to it to make it harder for people to get the Medicaid benefits that they deserve. And so even if you are somebody who qualifies still, and even if you're somebody who wants to continue doing it, you're going to have to fill out a lot more paperwork and get things notarized, and it's just going to fucking suck in general. And even if you are somebody that makes it through that process, there might be maybe your local hospital is going to close, you know, because they're not going to be able to stay open because of these Medicare and Medicaid cuts. Let's see here. I'm a Sandwich says too many world leaders were probably involved with the Epstein files, so they destroyed it. Thank you for including the word probably in that I'm a Sandwich. I appreciate you embracing not knowing things, you know. Alrighty. I'm a Sandwich says the same thing with 2 female Democratic nominees. LOL. I don't know what you mean by that. I'm a Sandwich. Nitzia Olmo says, do you think the Republican Party will ever be the party of Reagan again? No, I do not. Nitzia. And I think because of that and a million other reasons, we should do everything we can to unelect every single one of them. They cannot be rewarded with a single day more in office than they have already been elected to, because that would just be a tacit, you know, endorsement of the things that they have already done, of the things that they have voted for, of the things that they have turned a blind eye to, of the fealty and the lies and the corruption. Like, yeah, it's the necessity for them to feel electoral consequences for the things that they have done is absolute. Carmine, Ronald Reagan, the actor. Yes, the actor. Mersha, good to see you again. So the co-conspirators in the CA's that were charged and sentenced are innocent. I'm not. Which were you referring to, Marcia? Keith Lefrancois says, "Are you talking about the Democrats?" No, I'm not talking about the Democrats, Keith. I'm talking about unelecting all the Republicans. Jesus says, "Is Trump a good person?" No, he is not. I don't think that you can be accused of rape by over 24 women, especially and one who says that she was 13 years old at the time, and be a good person. All right, welcome to the live stream, everybody. Jesus says, "Bro, educated." W. All right, Jesse Horton says, "Facts, sweet." I'm a sandwich says, "Have you met him personally?" LOL. Do you mean Donald Trump? No, but I've seen him do and say a lot of things, so I think they get a pretty good judge of character that way. I don't think that you can, direct a mob of violent protesters to overthrow the government and be a good person. I don't think that you can lie the way that he lies. I don't think that you can incite violence the way that he incites violence. I don't think that you can be responsible for detaining and jailing and deporting a bunch of people who have done absolutely fucking nothing wrong, including veterans and citizens and Native Americans, and not do everything in your fucking power to undo that and still be a good person. Alrighty. Degrees of Freedom says, "Is it good to steal from a wealthy person to give to a poor person?" I mean, we're talking about going by the letter of the law, or are we talking about what is morally just? Like I cannot legally advocate for people to break the law because that would make me, I would be legally liable for things if I did that. So yeah, am I mad when people do that? Not necessarily. Let's see here. Keith Lefrancois says the party that changed their identity and goal are Democrats as well, even more so. What do you mean by that, Keith Lefrancois? Marcia says, so the co-conspirators in the Epstein case that were charged and sentenced are innocent. I don't know anything about that, Marcia. Reddit Stiletto says, when they say that the BBB tax cuts for the rich are permanent, what does that mean? Can't change. It doesn't mean that they can't be changed. It means that they're not going to expire. Redo Stiletto. I'm like 90% confident in that answer, so I'd definitely give that a Google. Swiftly Engaged says, who do we hold reps to Reagan's standard? Didn't he start a lot of reps BS that's going on, i.e. corporate taxes? Yes, Swiftly Engaged, but Ronald Reagan still had things that were normal and human about him. Like he was out there saying with his whole ass that immigrants were the backbone of this country, that we were a nation of immigrants and we need to welcome immigrants into this country. And George W. Bush, for all of his faults, was out there with his whole ass saying the Muslim community in America is not responsible for 9/11. Do not try to exact revenge on them. Whereas Donald Trump is out there saying, fuck all those people, fuck all brown people, fuck the poor people, fuck trans people, fuck everybody. Do whatever you want, smack people around. I don't give a shit. I'll pardon you, etc., etc. Job Lane says Obama desperately tried to lower corporate taxes. No, he didn't. Job Lane. He actually raised taxes on the wealthy, not as much as the Republicans lowered them, but he did do something towards moving that goalpost. Philip AH says, yeah, your delusions are not actual things he did. I mean, I'm only telling you about actual things that he did, Philip AH. So, if you think I'm wrong about something, let me know and we can discuss. Mandy Kidlow Parkin says, do you have your stand-up somewhere online for viewing? I have a little bit online, but I haven't put anything online recently. It is something that I need to get back on because I have a bunch of footage from my last 2 tours that I need to go through. Philip AH says, you didn't say F all Muslims. Oh my God, you're saying that I'm not allowed any hyperbole whatsoever. I'm not allowed to say things colloquially. I'm not allowed to say that his Muslim ban was essentially him saying F all Muslims, Him going out there and saying and calling for a ban on all Muslims coming into this country until we can, quote unquote, figure out what the hell is going on. That's not saying F all Muslims. Then I don't know what you think F all Muslims would be. Job Lane says, no, we tried very hard to lower corporate taxes second term. You are wrong. Job Lane, I'm sorry about this, but I got to stick to my guns here. I do not think that you are saying accurate things. And I am open to being proven wrong about this, but I've dug into this many times because I wanted to come on here on my live streams and make sure that I'm being as accurate as possible. And so what I know to be accurate is that, for a long time, at least since the Reagan administration, Republican presidents have cut taxes for the rich and giant corporations, and the Democratic Party and Democratic presidents have increased taxes on the rich and corporations, just not by as much as Republicans have. And it's gone, Republican presidents, Democratic presidents, Republican presidents, Democratic, like that. But again, if there's something that you're thinking about specifically that you think I'm being inaccurate about, let me know. Shoot me a DM, email me through my website. I am open to changing my mind. Job Lane says ChatGPT it right on the screen. You're aware that ChatGPT is wildly inaccurate, right, Job Lane? Let's see here. Bandaboss says, I'm going to watch another movie today. Sweet. Good for you, Bandaboss. I'm a Sandwich says, have any Democrats done anything wrong in your mind? Yes, many Democrats. Many Democrats have done many wrong things. But there's a difference. If you look at the aggregate, if you do like a bird's eye view of politics and history, Republican presidents, Republican elected officials, Republican administrations are way worse than Democratic administrations. Like what? I don't think that Nancy Pelosi should have said that insider trading was okay. I don't think that the Clinton and Biden should have passed the crime bill during the 90s. I don't think that Barack Obama should have let Mitch McConnell steal a Supreme Court seat. I don't think that Ruth Bader Ginsburg should have stayed on the bench. I don't think that Chuck Schumer saying that writing a very strongly worded letter to Donald Trump was enough of a pushback against the Trump administration. I don't think that the DNC should have put their finger on the scale to try to help Clinton or Biden during the 2016 or 2020 elections, But again, these are all nits that I am picking where the Republican Party is literally starving children to death. They are causing children to die of AIDS and hunger who do not have to die of AIDS and hunger. They are mass firing veterans from the government. They are putting women's lives at risk. At least 4 women have died already because of their actions. They are shoveling money from the poor to the rich, and that is way worse than anything that a Democrat that I can think of has done. I mean, you can pick out specific Democrats, like I don't like Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema holding up the Build Back Better bill. I don't like, the fact that Senator Menendez was fucking accepting gold bars from the government of Egypt and shit like that. But yeah, on the net, it is still Democrats plus 1,000. Let's see here. Boomer Kathy says, what AI do you use or trust? I don't use any AI because not only is it inaccurate, it takes a wild amount of electricity. All of the gains that we made electricity-wise because of the Inflation Reduction Act have been essentially wiped out by AI and cryptocurrency. So I don't use any of that shit. I know that me being one person not doing that is not going to make that big of a difference, but I can at least not be part of the problem as well. And my friend will send me like a really cute AI image of me as the Pope or some shit. And I'm like, hey, congratulations. You just wasted an entire day's worth of electricity in Las Vegas. Let's see here. A Bossman says, would you date a black woman, sir? I would, and I have. I am currently married, and so I will not be doing that in the future, but I've dated black women in the past. M Drobes says, why are MAGA poor siding with billionaires? Because of propaganda and misinformation. Because they have been convinced by the things that they have seen on right-wing news or on social media that is the move. I'm a Sandwich says, would you like to debate somebody? Would you debate someone like Ben Shapiro? How do you think you would do? I don't do debates because I think they're stupid. I think that it's just like, it's boxing, it's wrestling, it's fake. It's 2 people who are not trying to learn anything or engage, just trying to prove the other person wrong, even if they know that they are wrong. Like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk know that they are wrong, but they have just memorized the exact talking points to make it seem like the wrong things that they are saying are right. Ted Cruz is the same shit. If he's trying to argue against climate change, he's going to say, did you notice that these numbers went down over the last 19 years? And the reason why he says 19 years is because if you go back 20 years, then it says like the exact fucking opposite. I know I'm being vague here, but I'm like half remembering something I saw on TV a bunch of years ago. But would I debate Ben Shapiro or any of these fucking ding dongs? Absolutely, because I would relish the opportunity to tell them that they're a piece of shit to their face. I really enjoyed that Jubilee video of like Ben Shapiro debating like 15 Democrats not because they weren't debating. They were just yelling at him. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'd pay $50 to do that. Chris Dewey, 47, says they have no ability to think critically. Red state voters think the banjo is classical music. So Chris Dewey, 47, I want to be very clear about who the enemy is. And the enemy is not other voters. Everybody who votes for Republicans or does not vote it is not their fault that they are like that. You know, there are plenty of people on the left who got tricked into not voting in 2024, and there are plenty of people on the right who got tricked into voting for a platform that only helps the rich. And it is not their fault. You know, they are not dumber than the rest of us. You know, the Bible teaches us, there but for the grace of God go I. And so maybe if you were born into that state, into that family, going to that church, getting all of your news off of that specific Facebook feed, maybe you would have gotten tricked also. Now, my empathy ends exactly where the power structures in right-wing politics begin. So for every voter, I have 100% empathy. I don't care how many times you voted for Donald Trump. I don't care how many MAGA rallies you went to. You are a good person to me, and I will engage with you. But if you are a Republican politician, if you're a Republican talking head like a Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson, zero empathy. You're fucking stuck. You're a piece of shit. You know exactly what you're doing. You're hurting people, and you are ruining this country. You are selling it piece by piece to the highest fucking bidder. Alrighty, let's see here. Crazy Monsoon says the Epstein files show that Trump and Epstein raped very young girls together. Do you know that? I don't know if you know that to be a fact, Crazy Monsoon. I don't know if you have data that the rest of us don't have. Chris Dewey says it's not a trick, it's a lack of critical thinking, and I have no empathy for those that hurt others. Chris Dewey, what if you were born into, a town where everybody was a Republican? Do you really think that you would always, in every situation, be able to think your way out of that? Would go to the library and start doing your own research about things? I am not so narcissistic. I don't mean to call you narcissistic, Chris Dewey. I just mean to say that I think it's a little egotistical to think that we are such geniuses on the left that if we were born into a conservative family and everybody around us was telling us this is the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth, that we would be the special little angels that were able to think our way out of that. Let's see here. Now, Chris Dewey, I will give you this. There are some real fucking pieces of shit in the Republican voting base. There are billionaires and millionaires who vote Republican, even though they know it hurts other people because it helps their fucking bottom line. These people would kill us all if it made them a penny richer, and they don't give a shit about who they vote for in order to make that happen. Then there are people who are just like fucking super racist. They're just like, hell yeah, I'm a racist, and I fucking love it, and they vote for Republicans because they know that they will enact racist or homophobic policies or misogynistic policies. Those people, the rich people, they can all go fucking eat a dick or whatever, But yeah, the majority of people that are Republican, I've met tons of Republicans in my life. I do stand up in every state in the country, and there is nothing wrong with these people except for the fact that of where they get their information. And again, there but for the grace of God go I. Anchor Zagay says, what can the Democrats do to stop what's happening? Very little, Anchor Zagay. They're doing what they can. They have almost no political power right now. And they don't have the resources available to them of the Republican Party because the Republican Party has aligned themselves with the billionaire class. So they have access to unlimited amounts of dark money political contributions from American billionaires from other nations, from the Qataris, the Russians, the Saudis. There's no way that the Democratic Party can compete in that environment. But we need to stop thinking about the Democratic Party as being the ones that are going to save us and start recognizing our own agency. Anchor Zagay, it is up to us to fix this. Let's elect the Democrats. Let's not wait for the Democrats to get elected themselves. Let's do it. Let's us do the work, Jesse Houghton says, hoods in my grandpa's closet meant I should have been a Trumper, but jazz music changed that. Are you being serious? Did jazz music really change you from being a racist to being not a racist? Oh, man. It sounds like a bit, Jesse Houghton, but yeah, I mean, thank goodness for jazz music, I guess. M. Drob says there are Republicans and then there are MAGA Republicans, different breed of cat. Yeah, I mean, even MAGA Republicans I have empathy for, It is just the people that know what they're doing, know the truth, and are still doing it. Those are the ones that I'm like, you guys can fuck off right to hell. Alrighty. Shoddy says, why should we elect the Democrats when they won't change anything? So a couple of things about that, Shoddy Panda Boss. Enjoy your movie, Bandit Boss. So a couple of things about that, Shadi. Number one, you're saying they won't change anything like you know, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You don't know what a Democratic Party will or will not do in the future. And so I would encourage you to embrace the humility of admitting that you do not know things. Now, do you want us to try to make the argument that Democrats have not changed things in the past, and so they will not change things in the future? If that's the argument that you made, then I will full-throatedly disagree with that, because both the Obama administration and the Biden administration were transformative and in very positive ways for people in this country and abroad. And the Trump administrations have been destructive in the opposite way. So in addition to having a platform that I agree with and a record that I think is commendable, I also think that the Republican platform is a piece of trash and that they have a record that is fully condemnable. And so, yeah, this idea that Democrats won't do anything in the future because they haven't done anything in the past is wildly inaccurate. Shadi, are you still here? Crazy Monsoon says Chuck Schumer has to go. I would support a primary challenger to Chuck Schumer. Let's see here. Let's see here. Swiftly Engaged says, no need to answer my question. Just research your comment on AI and electricity. Oh, and what did you figure out, Swiftly Engaged? Let's see here. Nina A says Democrats won't take Medicaid away. That is accurate. Nevimat says MAGA hijacked the Republican Party. That is also accurate. Jesse Houghton says, how do you feel about age limits on the House political leaders? I'm for them. Spectator says, so the Republicans are the problem, never the Democrats. That's your message here. The Republicans are the main problem. Are Democrats sometimes the problem? Are they sometimes a little problem? Do they sometimes make mistakes? Absolutely. But we're talking about the difference between, let's say that you own like a 7-Eleven or something, and you got kids reading magazines in your store, but there's also a dude stabbing you in the throat. Which one of those do you think is a bigger problem? Which one of those do you think needs to be the one that you are full-throatedly yelling at and trying to get somebody to do something about? If you say the kids with the magazines, then you're one of those people that think that it is more important that we throw shade at the Democratic Party for the mistakes that they've made than the Republican Party for the active evil that they are currently doing. All right, Save the Turtle says Democrats are the problem. No, they're not. And ask a question, Save the Turtles, or I'll boot you. I'm a Sandwich says Congress under Biden's administration didn't help the middle class at least the way they should have. I mean, they did. I'm a Sandwich 3. They probably could have done more, but they only had 2 years of united government. And during those 2 years, they had to deal with Manchin and Kristen Sinema, who were bought and paid for by bad faith actors who wanted to destroy the Democrats' platform. And it is a miracle of legislation and and compromise that they were able to get as many things passed as they did. We're talking about the Inflation Reduction Act, which brought inflation down from 9% to 2.4%. That helped people pay for food. We're talking about capping the cost of insulin. That saved people's lives. We're talking about an NLRB that was siding with the union and the workers for the first time in a generation. That fucking helped the middle class. Yeah, the list fucking goes on and on, my guy. Alrighty. Talon Braham says some comments in this live were posted because those specific community members deserved it. Not sure what you mean by that. Six Sir says, why is MAGA so brainwashed? Because billionaires have been pumping a lot of money into capturing all of our information sectors. And so, mainstream media, legacy media, right-wing media, social media, all of it has been captured by the billionaires, and they are using it to spam us with the exact kind of propaganda that convinces people Republicans good, Democrats bad, vote for Republicans or don't vote at all. Alrighty, scrolling down to the bottom, Never Lose Your Smile says, is Trump a fascist? I think so, but more importantly, the people that study fascism also think so. All right, Swiftly Engaged says, over 1 year, as much electricity as Italy is generated. So I think what we're saying, Swiftly Engaged, is that I was right. All right, Spectator says, the problem is the same old system, sir, not Republicans or Democrats. They both sold out. Where have you been, sir? LOL. Spectator, that is inaccurate. Democrats are not perfect. They have not solved every problem. But that is because they are playing a game that has been stacked against them for a very long time. I can give you a dozen examples of amazing things that happen under Democratic administrations and terrible things that happen under Republican administrations. There is a difference. There's a difference between the politicians, between the platforms, between the outcomes, both on the national and the state level. So saying that they're both sold out it's wildly inaccurate. And frankly, you're doing work to help the Republican Party. Because if you're like, let's say that you're somebody who's trying to figure out like who you're going to go on a date with, person A or John Wayne Gacy. And if I say to you, all men are the same, you're kind of helping John Wayne Gacy get another victim, aren't you? Lesbian 740 says, I feel that centrist Dems are Republicans of the 90s. Some people would argue that, Lesbian, but I think that the centrist Dems are much more progressive than even the most left-leaning Dems were in the 90s. I grew up in the 90s, and so I can tell you exactly how Republican-light the Democratic Party was back then. Zonia, great to see you again, says, so the lesser of two evils. Yes, they are the lesser of two evils, but they're also just like a lot less evil. I'll use this analogy as many fucking times as I have to. It is the difference between kids reading magazines in a 7-Eleven and a dude stabbing the clerk in the throat. Not Sunny Bono says pro-life and also pro-death at the same time. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Diego Vargas, good to see you again. Did we have an economy that looked good on paper during Biden? A lot of people didn't feel a change. So yeah, that is 100% accurate, Diego Vargas. Pretty much every financial indicator during the Biden administration was going in the right direction. The only thing that the Democratic Party and Biden were not able to fully solve in 2/4 years that they were in control of parts of the government was cost of living. And that's partially because of how massive of a problem it was. It partially has to do with supply chains that got fucked during the Trump administration because they handled COVID so imbecilically. It's partially because of a trade war that was started during the Trump administration. It's partially because of a stupid fucking oil deal that Trump negotiated with the Saudis that did not end until 2022 to overly inflate gas prices. So yeah, it was a massive problem, but they were solving it. They were in the process of solving it, just needed more time. And it needed fewer people like Joe Manchin. It needed more people who were doing the fucking work, like Chris Murphy and Brian Schatz, in government. And if Democrats had had 60 seats or even 62 seats, we would have seen even more transformational change than we did. All right, Spectator says, it's my opinion you're selling people on continuing a broken system, and that is really sad. We do bets. We do. I think you're saying better. Spectator, I disagree with that. I'm trying to fix the system. But the only way that you fix the system is by voting for better. Like there are people who believe in this kind of like accelerationist philosophy of let's let the Republicans ruin the world so much that there'll be a revolution and we'll be able to build a utopia out of the ashes. But I have a real problem with that attitude, if that's the thing that you are advocating for. Because a lot of marginalized people are going to get hurt in that situation, and also we don't know what government is gonna spring from the ashes. It could just as easily be an even more fascist government than our current one. Cancer 11 Malt B DW says, when the Dem get back, I hope they ship MAGA to Russia. Well, I hope they don't. I hope that they just increase education funding and reopen rural hospitals and stuff like that. Dog says, Abraham Lincoln or JFK, who is more popular overall? I don't know. I'm a Sandwich says, the oil deal had to be done. That deal was started with FDR. I don't know how accurate that is. I'm a Sandwich, but we've been kind of like on opposite sides on a couple of these issues, so I'm going to remain skeptical. BB Fan 1974 says, don't you think the main problem with the Democratic Party boils down to messaging? No, I do not, BB Fan, because the information environment has been captured by the billionaire class. So it doesn't matter what Democrats say or do. It will be chomped up and spit out in a way that makes it seem like it is bad. The Affordable Care Act made it illegal for insurance companies to discriminate against people with pre-existing conditions. But the narrative that was pushed out over social media, over mainstream media, over right-wing media, was that it was a government takeover of your health care, and there were going to be death panels that decide whether your grandpa's going to get to live or die. Kamala Harris campaigned with Liz Cheney to say to America, look at how bad Donald Trump is, that even Liz Cheney is endorsing me. But that got chomped up and spit out and interpreted into, look at that, Democrats are the same as Republicans. Don't fucking vote for the Democratic Party. They're aligning themselves with the fucking Cheneys, the war criminals, the fucking Cheneys. They have the same policies as the Cheneys, clearly. Otherwise, why would they be campaigning with each other? That's why I say it's up to us. Because there's gonna be billionaire shit happening, regardless of if they came up with the most perfect messaging strategy. The billionaire class would take it, they would chomp it up, they would pay their bots to spread their message far and wide. The Democratic Party was considering a $20 million study to figure out how to reach young male voters, which is a demographic that they did not win in the 2024 election. And I saw a dozen videos of people being like, can you believe how dumb the Democratic Party is? And I'm like, what, that they're trying to reach out to other groups of people, that they're trying to figure out how to communicate to voters better? Like, what the fuck are we talking about, man? There is this image, this umbrella over the Democratic Party that no matter what they do, it's dumb and wrong. And that is part of what I am fighting against here, because it's just like this weird knee-jerk groupthink thing that I see constantly happening, you know? All right, scroll down to the bottom. Excellent questions today, guys. I'm having an excellent time. Zonia says, do you think we are reliving 1929 when the Mexican repatriation started? That question's a little bit over my head, Zonia. History is not my strong suit. Right, Swiftly Engaged says, read an article about the CFPB and it being just another government agency and not really needed. Thoughts? Excuse me. The Consumer Financial Protection Board paid for itself by a factor of something like 5x. It was returning money to American citizens. So American citizens were using their tax dollars to pay for the Consumer Financial Protection Board. They were going after these giant corporations that were cheating people and banks that were taking people's money illegally and giving it back to the voters 5 times more than the voters paid to have that agency. It was an incredible agency. It was an essential agency, I would say. And without them, now we are more at the whim of shitty business practices. We have less ability to hold them to task. Where if Wells Fargo decides they want to open a bunch of credit cards under your name to help the bottom line, but fuck over your credit score, who's gonna fight for us now? You know. All right, Mandy Kidwell Parkins says, I don't understand why religion is coming back into politics. That was settled a long time ago. The reason why is because people have voted for people who want to tear down the separation between church and state. And they are voting for presidents who are sitting judges at the Supreme Court level and below who are intent on destroying the separation between church and state. And some of this is, people being Christian extremists. And some of it is people recognizing that if you can control the religious Christian voting base, then you can control the entire country. So yeah, it makes perfect sense, if you think about malicious actors, if you think about who benefits from it and who has the power to benefit from it and why they're doing that, J74 says, is politics fine? No, it is not. Spectator says, why do you support the paid off AOCs in government that will never change with the current system, sir? Spectator, I don't think you're here in good faith. I don't think you're listening to me. I don't think that you are taking anything that I say and actually processing it. I think that you're trying to fight. I think that you are trying to prove that you are right as opposed to trying to engage. And so if you keep on doing this, I'm going to block you because I'm not here to fight. I'm here to actually engage with people, to inform people, to activate people, to recruit people. Jacob says, what's your opinion on the Epstein stuff? I think that it is telling that Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, who are currently in charge of the FBI, who before they were in charge of the FBI were saying that there was Epstein shit to show people, are now saying that there's not Epstein shit to show people. And that either means that they were full of shit then or they're full of shit now. And there are a dozen ways that Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were connected. They had the same lawyers. The guy who gave Epstein his sweetheart deal in Florida was like Trump's first commerce secretary or some shit like that. Epstein told Michael Wolff that he was Donald Trump's closest friend. Donald Trump told Michael Wolff that he was worried that Ghislaine Maxwell would spill the beans about his relationship with Epstein after she got arrested. So yeah. Let's see here. Spectator says, I seriously am. You're stuck in a broken system, but if that's fighting because we don't agree, then fine. All right. Congratulations, Spectator. You're out of here. Enjoy being cynical somewhere else. Scrolling down to the bottom. Zonia says, churches have always been pro-politicians. They tell their herds who to vote for during sermons. I don't know how accurate that is, Zonia. I'm sure that there are some great churches who are not trying to tell their flocks who to vote for and stuff like that. But yeah, I could be wrong about that. I'm not going to die on that hill. Thank you for being back here, Zonia. Good to see you again. Jacob says Biden had the files for 4 years, and somehow this is a Trump cover-up. We don't know that, Jacob. Biden was not out there saying that he was going to release the Epstein files and then got into office and then didn't. That's something that Trump and his cohorts did. Let's see here. Anchors a Gay says, what are your thoughts on the impact Maple MAGA has in Canada, and are we in danger? It seems as though Trump's fighting with Canada has kind of turned the tide for the Maple MAGA movement. In the, what's his name? Paul Revere got his fucking ass handed to him in the election. I just think that if you are a citizen of Canada, just fucking keep doing the work to, keep that ball rolling down the hill. You know what I mean? Queen B OF5 says, oh my God, always find a way to blame Biden. Yeah, isn't that interesting how it's never Republicans' fault? It's always Democrats' fault for not fighting the Republicans better or some shit like that. All right, I'm losing my voice. I gotta get out of here. It's about 1:10, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the questions, for the support, for the gifts, for the likes, for the shares. I appreciate any support that you guys give me, whether it is the free kind, like liking and sharing and telling your friends how great my live streams are and how they got to check them out. If you want to support financially, you can, but you don't have to. I've got a Patreon that you can find on my website, jaredberenstein.com. I got 4 patrons right now. They're the best. They want you to join them. I've also got a store that you can buy things from on my website, jaredberenstein.com. And you can send gifts and subscribe on Twitch and TikTok and YouTube and all the good places. My normal streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And if there were any questions that you still want to ask me, that you asked me earlier that I didn't get to, my DMs are always open. You can email me through my website. I've got a Discord that you can put your questions on as well. Because this is not just about me engaging here on these live streams. This is a big project for me. This is a 24/7 project for me. So don't be shy about reaching out if you got questions or if you need to know where to go for doing the kind of work that solves these problems. Like, I want to be a resource for y'all. On my Discord, I have a thread posted called The Work that is just all different ways that you can be a part of the solution right now. And that you being part of the solution is the way that we get out of this, guys. So please go check that out and please just do the work. It is the most important thing. That is how we survive this rapid sliding into authoritarianism that we are currently suffering under. If you don't want Rachel Maddow to be sent to a fucking concentration camp in Florida, then we got to do the work, guys. We got to do the fucking work. Alrighty, let's see here. Zonia says, bro, you make me feel less insane despite the differences. I appreciate you being here, Zonia. And yeah, have we got differences? Let's fucking talk about it. Let's fucking get into it. Send me a DM, email me through my website, join the Discord, etc., etc. Alrighty. All right, everybody, that looks like it. I'll see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Be good to yourselves and be good to everybody else as well. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.